Hi, Kev, Tabletop Upgrade, and this is just a quick video to introduce a new podcast that's been released every week called 20-Minute Tabletop. This is a podcast I record every week with my friend Tom. It's released on a Tuesday on all your favourite podcatchers, but from now on it's going to be released on this YouTube channel as well, starting with this video, which is episode 0, an episode we recorded when we met up in Oxford at the beginning of the year and went to Thirsty Meeples. So I hope you enjoy it, and if you've got a second, check the links in the first comment on this video because I've been working on some new products for Arkham Horror the Living Card Game and Netrunner. So I'd love it if you check them out. These have been in the works for about 18 months and they've finally come to market, and you can see them on tabletopupgrade.co.uk. But for now, enjoy episode 0 of our podcast, 20-Minute Tabletop.
Welcome to 20-Minute Tabletop, a podcast where each episode we share something from the gaming world that we find interesting or exciting in 20 minutes or less.
We're your hosts, Kev and Tom, and this is episode 0, which is not going to be a 20-minute or less episode. It's going to be a bit of an exploration as to what we're hoping to achieve with this podcast, Tom.
Obviously, we are mutually connected by our love of the hobby in slightly different ways, though, to be fair. I am more of your traditional modern board gamer, I suppose. Lots of cardboard in my collection.
Whereas I would say I'm more of a miniature gamer. Big into Malifaux and other skirmish games, quite like Kill Team, Blood Bowl, Gaslands. These are all things that I get excited about. But I do like many Euro games. I can happily play them. I just don't happen to buy them. I do have a few in my collection. Got the old classics, Terraforming Mars. Got Wingspan, which might be leaving soon, as we're discussing today. And, it's a shared love, isn't it? Because only today we went to Thirsty Meeples in Oxford, first ever board game cafe in the UK, and that's something we're going to do an episode on. So there's a lot in common, Tom. Yeah. What would you say your favourite types of games are?
It's very difficult to answer that without sounding like somebody that is a board gamer that other people wouldn't like. In the sense that I would want to say, well, of course, Kevin, it depends on the context that I'm in. If I'm sitting with my family, I would like a nice simple game or a social deduction game with the right group of people. I've got a broad taste across board games. I do like some heavyweight Euros. And I also really like games like Azul, where you're just playing a nice simple game with your kids. I think it's the context is key, isn't it, on what you're playing? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I almost look to you. You're a massive influence on my gaming taste. Perhaps not the miniatures stuff, but one of my great loves is Arkham Horror, the Living Card Game. And that's something, after 3 attempts, I thought it was rubbish for the first time. I thought it was okay for the second. And the third time, I became so obsessed with it, I ended up starting a business producing accessories for it, which then grew into my full-time job, and I'm now, a producer of board game and card game and miniature game upgrades. So you have had an outsized impact on my life, and that game has. So, I would say that I'm more of a deep dive kind of guy. A few games that I go really deep on, but I enjoy being around people like yourself who have this broad church of taste, and I can jump on and try some different stuff. It's really refreshing.
I do enjoy having tried, just today in the board game cafe, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point in an episode, we tried a game called Cascadia, which I really enjoyed. Trying a wide range of the modern board gaming is what I really enjoy, and getting a few things. I only got back into it in 2011, about 10 years ago, where my dad, I remember he said to me, do you remember as a kid and we used to play Space Crusade and Hero Quest? And you loved board games. And he said, what do you think's happened to board games in the last 20 years since we stopped playing? And so I just stumbled upon Board Game Geek, and I was running down this top 100 and I just clicking things. And it was like I'd discovered Narnia, literally opened the cupboard and there's a Aslan there sort of saying, hey, you've missed all this, mate, look. So I really got heavily back into it. And games like Galaxy Trucker really kind of redefined what I thought board games could do around the table, and they continue to innovate. I often use the example with music as well. When somebody's saying, I like playing board games at Christmas, and you say, well, what do you play? And they go, we play Cluedo, or we play Monopoly, or we play Risk. And I always think board gaming is a bit like music in the sense that if you'd never listened to a song that was written after 1920 or after 1970, all those genres of music and all that innovation that's gone in the music industry, I think is equitable for how games have developed over the last 50 years. In fact, I'd say there's probably been just as much innovation in board games as there has been in any artistic field.
Oh, it's massive now, isn't it? I mean, when just going into that board game cafe, I mean, you know that there's games out there. You see the BGG lists, top 100s, top 500s. There's all these huge podcasts, Dice Tower channel, which it's got to be around 1 million subscribers. It's massive money, isn't it, in this industry? And to go to the board game cafe today and see there's 2,000 games there, all with ridiculous production values, like really impressive stuff. It's almost impenetrable to some extent.
Yeah, it is. It's impenetrable, and at the same time, every time we walked into a mainstream shop today around Oxford, we were noticing that front and centre in all the shop windows.
Yeah, Waterstones, Blackwells, W.H. Smiths are just everywhere, aren't they? And not just Cluedo. You know, you got your Wingspan, the Catan, which you're saying are modern day Cluedos, perhaps. You know, they're but there's very much a new wave, isn't there?
Yeah, and I'm hoping in this podcast, really, we get to talk about not so much the mechanics of games, not so much about how to play them. I think people can dig into how to play videos on YouTube.
People are going to do it better than I could, that's for sure.
Yeah, so it's far more about talking really about what we love about particular games that we've played, maybe what it adds to our lives, what the experience is like.
Yeah, the experience is key, isn't it? And one thing I don't want to do is a review or a critic show, because I see some of those and I find them quite cringeworthy. People will viciously criticise what someone's obviously created with a great deal of love. And I find that hard to view sometimes. And it's a valuable service, you could argue, that you're helping people save money on products they wouldn't like. But that's not what I want this to be. It needs to be positive, about the love, what we like about the experience. And that word that you said there, I think we need to go for the experience of these games, what it gives you and what you take away from it, rather than the minutiae of the mechanics and the turn order and things like that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking forward to talking to you about. And particularly, we both live in different parts of the country. We get to see each other maybe once or twice a year at best. So a regular podcast, which we'll have to do in remote locations, just catching up on what we've been playing, what's been entertaining the brain box and keeping us excited about gaming will be lovely. It'll be lovely. Particularly interested in learning from you a lot about a field of gaming I know nothing about, which is the miniatures gaming. I must be honest, I have confessed today that I feel a little nervous about that field of gaming.
Well, it's definitely got the stigma, hasn't it? You know, the Warhammer shop, what used to be Games Workshop, has got a particular odour sometimes. And it's got, you know, although not anymore, to be honest, the whole thing, much like board games, has moved on. The same with, you know, miniatures. And it's not about big fistfuls of dice and, you know, quite often it's associated sometimes with bad behaviour or salty behaviour, as it's known. Things, I'm sure that still exists, but things have moved on, and there's a lot of modern miniatures games and skirmish games that cover a massive gamut. It's not just space dudes with guns. There's lots going on, and it's really interesting, I think. I'm quite looking forward to sharing that with you.
Yeah, you're going to have to, because even whilst you're saying that, I'm giving you a sceptical eye, having walked past that Warhammer shop today in Oxford and seen just dudes with massive guns. But I'm sure that you're right. I mean, you'll know a lot more about it than me. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about games that we've experienced. We'll catch up regularly and hopefully just take you on just small 20-minute episodes where we have a little chat about what we've got that week out of gaming.
Sounds good, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you soon, Tom, and I think we should definitely do one on the Board Gaming Cafe Thirsty Meeples, and I think perhaps that'll be our first episode.
Yeah, and after that, perhaps we'll talk about Arkham Horror, as I know it's a mutual love of ours, and whatever happens after that, we'll find out, I suppose.
Sounds good. Thanks for listening, and see you all soon.
See you all soon.